introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Tanisha Brown,
How old are you?
47 years old.
And why are you recording this video?
I am recording this video as a relaunch to my YouTube page and other social media formats as a way to basically do exactly that, reintroduce myself to my purpose and using my voice to share my experiences, my triumphs, my failures with anyone and everyone who can learn from them or utilize them in any way in their lives.
So this channel is going to be about more or less your personal experiences, conversation topics, things of that nature.
Yes, empowerment, just everyday things that we all encounter, no matter our social status, no matter our culture, no matter our race or ethnicity. We all have trouble from day to day, sometimes more trouble in one day than we may have on another. And sometimes we just need just one person, one push, a few words of encouragement to get through whatever that may be.
Do you have any studies?
Studies in the way of?
Studies as far as, in your educational background.
Okay, educational background. Although delayed, and I say delayed because for me, it was exactly that. It was despite a promising plans in high school, things went awry. Life took control, bad decisions were made, and I didn't run straight off to college as most of us plan in high school. So for me, once I made it through high school, I achieved my bachelor's degree in communication and business, as well as my master's in business management.
Do you have any fears with starting this channel?
I do. Several years ago, probably about 7 or 8 years ago, I had this dream that with my book, that there was going to be tours and all of these things lined up that would invariably be a platform for me to do what I've always wanted to do, which was share my experiences with the world, share my vulnerabilities and things like that. And I started doing some research, started talking to people, and in some of those conversations, you get the perceptions or the opinions of those people that are close to you, but still don't understand you, don't understand what your journey was meant to be, don't understand what your purpose was supposed to be. So I received answers like, do you think that your voice is stage ready? There's intricacies that you aren't sure about, that you may not have the resources for, the time for, with all of the other things going on in your life. And I sat on it. And I think that I sat on it for so long that it started to become a thing. And women, men, kids all over began to do these things. Then I really felt fearful that it would be something that seemed contrived or duplicated or just a carbon copy of something that someone else was doing. So I gave it up. And the beginning of last year, as I have been on a medical health journey, I was diagnosed with muscle tension dysphonia, which means that in addition to several masses that have grown on my isthmus and in other areas, I began to lose the ability to make sound waves, and muscle tension, which is caused from stress and other things, makes that worse. And the doctor said that probably within 1 to 2 years, I may lose my ability to talk. And since that time, I went to see a speech language pathologist, a speech language therapist, and done lots of exercises, done lots of things. And the closer that I get, or maybe even the days that I actually lose more of my voice, I start to think what that will look like for me. Someone who is so used to being social, who is so used to having a voice, especially because a long part of my journey, I lost my voice, or better yet, I let someone take it from me. And I vowed that once I started speaking, no one could ever make me stop unless I was prepared to do so. So what it looked like for me is missing the opportunity to continue to fulfill my purpose. And I believe that God set me on a journey a long time ago to share those triumphs, those experiences, those vulnerabilities, those pains, that lack of faith. Excuse me. And I didn't finish that. I understood the assignment. I just didn't complete it. And this is my opportunity to complete that task in the best way that I can. Because should there ever be a day that I cannot speak, I do not have the voice that everyone is used to hearing, the voice that I'm used to utilizing, I want to have said just as much as I can say along the way. I want to have been able to share all of the things that I believe that God purposed me to do before that time comes, before that opportunity is missed.
Okay. And speaking of journeys and purposes, that's the title of your book, My Journey, His Purpose. Can you tell us what that is about?
It's exactly that. It's in the title. It was my journey, and for the longest time, I couldn't understand why it was my journey, why it was my cross to bear, why they were my burdens. And when you lose faith, as I lost faith, and you battle to find it, you search under every rock, you go back, you look in a couple past relationships, a few past experiences, an encounter, and it wasn't there. It was at the foot of the cross. It was amidst all of the struggles and the battles. It was while in war that I found that faith. And in that moment, I realized, oh, this is why. This is my burden. This is why. This is my struggle. Because I wasn't special in the fact that I'm the only person that has experienced the things that I did. But God said, not today. You will survive. And in that survival, you will help others survive as well. So for a long time, I've been journaling from the time that I had a very traumatic experience. Let's just throw it out there. I was raped when I was in high school, and that was probably the first time that someone took my voice. And so I started journaling, and my therapist, rest in peace, to Helen Stebbins, started me truly being aware of my emotions and my feelings and what that looks like on paper, being honest, being okay to write the ugly things down that you're feeling, because how else do you acknowledge them and deal with them without it coming out, without it transforming into something that may hurt a loved one? So I just put pen to pad every single time that I was in a struggle. And one day I was sitting talking to God, as I did a lot, trying to find my faith again. And I said, wow, this is a lot. I had written down pages and pages of not just what was initially supposed to be just my emotions, just a way to acknowledge them so that I could carry them and deal with them and they would be less burdensome to me. So I could say, aha, that was an angry moment. Let's deal with that anger. But it was a culmination of experiences that I thought, he really slow cooked me so that I could feel every pain, so that I could understand every struggle, so that I would know what every tear that ran down my face and the face of my children meant. And I want that to mean something to someone. It may not mean something to everyone, but those that it does mean something to will take what they need from it and leave the rest. So the book was a way of doing that for me. It was a way of saying, it's time to settle up. And by settle up, I mean that in my journey, I hurt a lot of people. I was hurt a lot by people. And sometimes you don't know what to do with that. Sometimes you don't know if you're supposed to hold on to that anger. Sometimes you don't know if you're supposed to try to finesse someone into believing that it's time for them to owe you that apology you've been desperately waiting for so long. So this was a way for me to take all of those things that I was working out in my head and give them the best way that I could to everyone else, including the people that I needed to settle up with. It was important for me to explain why, or at least my why, as to why some things did occur and didn't occur, as to why I let some things happen. And it was my way of saying, I acknowledge that I did that, and I'm sorry for it. Because I feel like before you can move on, you have to settle up, make peace with the things that I've done, make peace with the people that I hurt, and also if it's still a struggle for them to have some peace as well, for them to know this is why. This is why she did this to me. This is why she said these things to me, and I may not forgive her, and they may not. Forgiveness for me is something that is given. I give those who have harmed me forgiveness, and they give it to me if they choose. And if they don't choose to forgive me, that's not part of my journey. But my journey is to acknowledge the things that I've done, the people that I did them to, and settle up. So this book was all of those things for me. It was my journey. It explained to me and to others why, and then it led me to my purpose, which was to not bottle all those things up, to not be afraid of them, to not be held prisoner by my past, but to share it, to share my vulnerability, because you can't truly learn if you can't be vulnerable, if you can't be humble enough to know that what I know is what I know. But there is someone who may know more. There is someone who may have already experienced this and found a way out sooner. So my hopes in writing it was that someone could find their way out sooner, that they don't sit in that pit of despair, in that pit of regret, in that sadness, in that guilt, especially guilt, and not be able to move forward. And if someone would have come along when I was struggling with staying in an abusive relationship, when I was struggling with what to do next to take care of my kids and myself, and said, hey, there's a better way, I may not have been down as long as I was.
And where can you find that book?
You can find this book, My Journey, His Purpose, Walmart.com, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and several other online outlets. Just search it.
So you spoke on being a victim of rape, a domestic violence survivor, and you also had struggles with suicide and depression. Is that correct?
I did. After the rape, it was now, at best, something that just chipped away at me every day. Now, I held that secret for a very long time, and the more you hold those things in, the more you second guess. For me, I think I second guessed everything that I had been taught, everything that I had read, every word that I had heard someone read to me from the Bible. I second guessed all of those things. And when I did so and I lost faith, then you lose hope. And for me, there was no hope. There was always the fear of, what if they find out? What will happen? How will they respond? How will they treat me? How will I respond to how they treat me? And then before I could even accurately and appropriately deal with the feelings of shame and guilt, the secret was exposed, and I immediately found myself in just this cave of overwhelming fear. It was consuming to think about every time someone looked at me, especially my loved ones, what they thought of me, what they felt like led to that. And then the battles that ensued after that were, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it some more. Let's talk about how you feel about it, how it made you feel. When I had spent so long trying to bury it, trying to hide from it, trying to run from it, the last thing I wanted to do was talk about it, because I felt like I was giving people more fuel to feel some kind of way about me, to feel disappointed in me. And in those battles, most of all with probably my most loved and treasured people in my life, I couldn't answer those questions. The stereotypes, the responses that you get, the misconceptions that were out there and probably still exist about rape ate me alive. And the only thing that I could think of doing is, if I'm not here anymore, I don't have to talk about it. If I'm not here anymore, I can't disappoint anybody any further. So the first time, I just found every pill I could find in the house, combination of several people's prescriptions, and I didn't think too long about it because there was other fears. There was fears about how people would view my family after I was gone. What would they think? How would they think that they failed me? And in that moment, I just said, screw this. It won't matter because I won't be here. And swallowed all of them, drank water, then drank milk. Don't know why, but something I had read, I think on the internet or something like that. I had went down to the library and searched different ways to do it. And the next thing I remember is being woken up in a pool of vomit. That was the first time. The second time was amidst an argument about what was the next step for me, what I was going to do to make this right. Why wasn't I willing to press charges against my rapist? All of the things that I did not want to cope with, I was not ready to deal with. And you have to think, we're talking about a 17-year-old mind that was just in the cusp of what at that time was the marker for success. Go to school, do your best, try to excel, get a scholarship, go to college, have fun, meet new people, live life to its fullest. Well, that train derailed, and I wasn't prepared to deal with all of those feelings and emotions. So it made me angry that people wanted to talk about it all the time. It made me angry that people didn't understand that I just wanted to go back to my quiet struggle, that quiet, silent storm that continued to brew inside of me. And suicide was, for me, the way I didn't have to do that. I wouldn't have to be forced to do anything. No one else could make me do anything else in regards to that. I would just not be here. And I think that you have a way of fooling yourself when there's no more hope, when you're struggling with your faith, to think the wrong thing. Your mind tells you all of these things that you create, and you start to say, no one's gonna miss me anyway. They're already disappointed. They're already angry with me. This will pass for them and they'll be okay, and I won't be here to know otherwise.
So what advice would you give young people out there, even people of any age that are going through loss, might be a victim of some kind, feel as if there's no hope left, there's no reason for them to be here, that they can't take it anymore and they just want to end things? What advice would you give them?
Number one, would always remember that every morning that God chooses to wake you up, there is hope. That's the hope. That's the blessing in waking up. That's the blessing in waking up to a struggle. That's the blessing in waking up to sadness, to despair, to hopelessness, is that He woke you up. So although you may not be able to see what His plan is yet, He has a plan. And if He woke you up, He certainly indeed plans to see you through it. So hold on. Acknowledge what's going on. None of us are perfect. And there are people out there who will try to make you feel like they are, or that you should be. None of us are. We're not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. I probably just made one right before we started this, and I'll make 10 more by tomorrow at this time. But if He woke you up, there's time to correct it. There's time to fix it. But the first thing that I think was the hardest for me to do was acknowledge it, because we don't want problems, right? You sit around in these groups, you go out with friends, you see people, especially now with the social media formats that are out there, and you use what they have and going on in their lives, their markers for their success, as your markers. And I think that that was part of my issue, is that I saw this rigid line for success that others before me had set. But now I know that in 10 minutes, if something changes, I can erase that line and draw another one. There's going to be times where I'm going to be further back from my line, and there's going to be times that I'm right on target, and there's going to be times, that I am 10 paces ahead. But that changes. Life changes. It changes by our decisions. It changes by the people that we have around us. It changes by other people's decisions that we allow to impact us. And when you feel hopeless, because I think that everyone has probably felt hopeless at one point in their lives, know that there is a better tomorrow. I used to always think that to be blessed, you would have no worries, you would have no sorrows, you would not have any pain. But then I remembered Jesus' journey, and it reminded me that during those times, it's not about not having struggles. God doesn't promise that our life will not be full of storms, that we will not have cloudy days. But what He does say is that there is a rainbow at the end of each storm. And sometimes we are right on the cusp of seeing that rainbow. And for me, suicide now is only allowing myself to take something from me, only closing my eyes as the rainbow appears. And I don't want that. Look for the rainbow. Always know that there is one coming after the storm. But our promise was never that we were not going to have storms. Our promise was never that we weren't going to have days in which we want to give up. But those days are few and far between. That's what you're hoping for, is that maybe twice a week that I'll be sad. Whatever that goal is, whatever that looks like for you, know that suicide is not the answer. Know that there is someone who cares and wants to be able to be there for you to talk you through that bad time. Know that there's crisis hotlines out there. I don't care if it's someone you haven't talked to in months. Don't allow yourself to believe that no one cares about your survival, that no one wants to share tomorrow's struggles with you, that no one wants to clap and cheer for you in tomorrow's victory. Always know that when tomorrow comes and God wakes you up, that there's a purpose for you, that there is a storm that will come to an end, a sun that will rise, and all of the muddy, murky water will dry up. And that is where you start to find your faith again, find your hope again, and find whatever His purpose is for you.
Great advice. And you mentioned earlier that you had kids. How many kids do you have?
3. 2 boys and a girl.
And how old are they?
My son Christian is 10. Isaiah, the middle child, is 21. And Janessa, my oldest, is 26.
Okay. Where were you born?
I was born, surprisingly enough, in Gallup, New Mexico, but raised here in Las Cruces, New Mexico. Shortly after I graduated from high school, I say 1997 is when I was found out that I was pregnant with my oldest, Janessa, and that was probably shortly after I was released from the mental health floor. Is probably a nice word to say, I don't know, a politically correct way to say it, of our local hospital. I had spent several days there, came home, and I think probably within a week or 2 of that, found out that I was pregnant. And I always tell her that she was that rebirth for me, that second chance for me to go again, to say, now there is nothing ever that will happen to me in this life that will make me want to end it early. I have a job, I have an assignment now. I have someone else to take care of, someone else to guide, to mold, to build up. And that, for me, gave me purpose. And my children, all 3 of them, and adult children, are a victory. They are one of the largest blessings in my life, that I can say it's the purest love that you can attain, because for so long you're responsible for them, and at times they have also been responsible for me. But it's in those triumphs, in those struggles, in those battles, in that war, that you understand. You're looking at this little person and they're looking up at you. And although there may be some confusion there, you see love in their eyes. And it's not a love that questions the dumb decisions that you make as a parent. It wasn't a love that questioned, why are you my mother? But it was a love that said, keep going. You can do this for us. So my relationship with them has always been one that has been raw. And I say raw because I try to be as brutally honest with them as I can. I always tell them that I can only give it to them as raw as the world will give it to them, because I don't want them to walk out our doors into life and be surprised by something and thrown off of their game. They're going to be thrown off their game anyway, but I want them to, once they get clear of all the emotion, I want it to be able to give them something that they could learn from, something that they could start with. The instruction manual on how to put something together. Because once they put it together, they're now responsible for maintaining it, realizing when it needs to be replaced, realizing when it just needs a little fixing, tuning up here and there. And I wanted to give that to them because I feel like although those things were given to me, it was different. It was a different time. And as a single mother, I was trying to teach my daughter how to be beautiful, how to be strong, how to be independent. And I was trying to teach my son how to be strong, how to be accountable, how to be honest, how to be a provider. And it was difficult. And I missed some opportunities to teach them the things that they needed to know. But as a single mom, there's going to be some flaws. I'm not sure even now that God ever intended for single moms to exist. He always knew about our sins. He always knew about our decisions, whether good or bad or indifferent. But I'm not quite sure that that's what he intended for us. So there were some flaws. There were some bad decisions that I made. There were some things and some times that I didn't know what I was doing or how I was going to get it done. But motherhood really is truly the grit of survival.
Where do you think you will be in the next 5 years?
I don't. I am through thinking about the next 5 years as it pertains to financial success, the perspective of others, social success, all of those things. I want to be worried about the next 5 minutes, and that's only if necessary. I have spent a lifetime worrying about where I am going to be when really all I had to be was in the moment, accepting God's grace, following his guidelines, and really just not being so focused on everyone else's markers, what everyone else was saying. And we get caught up in that. We get caught up in measuring ourselves up against someone else. So in 5 years, I pray that I'm still on this earth, if it's God's will. I pray that I have 5 more years to learn, to teach, to guide, to lead, to be led, to share more experiences, to share more victories, and to share more failures. I don't want to say that I don't want to fail in the next 5 years, not one time. I do, because I've learned on my journey that I've learned the most amidst those failures, amidst those, okay, let's get up and try again. That's when I've learned. That's when God has blessed me with somebody along the way that said, you know what? I saw you when you were walking through that moment. And from my perspective, this is where you messed up. And I can say, you know what? I appreciate that. And then I'll know for the next time. So I don't know that I see myself anywhere in 5 years, except for wherever God intends for me to be.
So you're more focused on the now, living in the present?
Yes. My journey, separate from my medical journey, has taught me that that's all I owe anyone and myself, is that very next moment. And in the moment that I'm currently in, to share, to be honest, to be okay with being vulnerable, to be okay with not knowing the answer, and finding the answers along the way with my loved ones.
What song would you say best describes or would be the soundtrack to your life?
I want to say my favorite song that I think speaks to a lot for me is Andra Day, I Rise. Of course, my wedding song to my best friend and soulmate, Tony. John Legend, All of Me. Let's see. Sorry, I'm caught up with 82 songs jumped in my mind, but I think that I could probably list 15 of them, but those two songs, especially my wedding song, All of Me, really speaks to really how we found each other, because we found each other in a place where we both were still a little bit lost. And some days we still are lost together, but that song was saying that I'll take the good, I'll take the bad. We got some crazy things going on, you got some crazy things going on, but I love all of you and I accept all of you. With the song I Rise, I just kind of feel like that's what the expectation is each day. Not that I don't fall, but that I rise. That I rise for my best friend and my husband and my mate, who I vowed to finish the race when he was too tired to, and he's vowed to do the same. For my kids, who I have to be the model of that, because life is going to knock you down. And sometimes it's going to be a result of our own bad choices. So if I don't rise, then they won't know how to. So I would feel like maybe those two songs would at least be the beginning, but the soundtrack and the movie are not finished yet.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
I don't. The Tanisha Brown today does not have any regrets. Sometimes we get caught up in that. And if it is my journey and it is his purpose, then what was born from a lot of the things that we would say we regret was beauty. There's beauty in the love that I have now with my husband. It's a flawed beauty, but it's beautiful. There is beauty in the things that I messed up as a single mom, as a domestic violence victim. I wouldn't be a domestic violence survivor without first being the victim. I think that regret is a word that is used probably too often. I don't think that you should regret certain things. There is some times that I wish I would have said no instead of yes, or yes instead of no. But even in those flawed decisions, even in looking back and saying, whew, I messed that up. I really screwed that up. I can't say that there was or is any regret to it, because I learned from it. I became a better version because of it. I was given an opportunity to say to my kids, hey, before you do this, think about it this way. So I don't think that I have any regrets. There's some unfortunate decisions and events, but not regret.
Okay, so we've touched on your background, where you're from, your book, suicide, depression, being a victim, but also being a survivor. Why do you think people should follow your channel or tune into your soon-to-come podcast?
I'm not sure that they should, but for anyone who is just wants to see the real, wants to see, the real shit. Because if I've been accused of being anything, sometimes it's a little too raw. And if you're willing to take a chance on real, on truly acknowledging some bullshit that you're going through, or you're trying to escape or trying to ignore, then stop on by. Let's talk about some things. Let's get it out in the open. Let's be vulnerable together. Let's be victorious together. I've seen some things. I've been part of a lot of things, good and bad. And I'm not afraid to share those things. I am not afraid to answer the tough questions about some of those things. And if there's anybody out there that thinks that even not themselves, someone they know needs some type of encouragement, needs to hear the real, the raw things, then that's something that I would like to share with them. They're not always going to get the refined version of me. They're not always going to get the beat face, but we're about to do some things. We're about to have some conversations in a different way, and some of the same ways that we've already seen. But it's not something that someone should do. We say people should do too many things, but if you would like to, you know someone who needs to, then by all means stop in, share with me. Let's talk about some things. My intent is not to compete or be compared. My intent is to empower, to share, to live, and to learn.
Okay, well, we appreciate you being raw and real and sharing a little bit about yourself, and look forward to seeing some more of your videos.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you guys for at least, and we'll get better at this, guys. Thank you guys for just giving me the opportunity to be me. Oftentimes we get caught up in people knowing some of the things that we've been through, or trying to find a way to talk about them without being judged. And I have certainly seen way more than that are contained in the pages of this book. And I want to talk about those things. I want to get to the point where we create spaces in everyday lives that it's okay to stop and talk about something that just happened, something that you feel like is going to happen, something you have anxiety and fear of happening, all of those things. And I think that while I have a voice, I'm going to use it. If you'd like to stop in with me and experience some of that with me, then by all means, please, then stop. Take a look at my YouTube page, certainly other social media platforms that will update, but this is just me stepping out and saying, I won't waste another day. It's time to reconnect with my purpose. It's time to use my voice that God has given me while I still have it, and share everything that I possibly can up until the moment. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.
All right, that's a wrap.